Hey guys, welcome back. I'm Spartacus, and today we are going to be recasting Survivor Heroes vs. Villains. So, though I do have some problems with the cast, like Sugar, Danielle, or even a Courtney, I did decide that I'm just going to get rid of the entire cast. So, I know that this might sound weird, because Heroes vs. Villains has almost a perfect cast. There's almost everybody on here I would put in a Heroes versus Villains cast for the first 20 seasons. Of course, there's those three that I mentioned earlier that I would probably not put in those seasons, but I decided it would be fun to do a Heroes versus Villains cast from the first 20 seasons, but I can't include anybody that was already in the cast. So let's start. So let's start off with the villains. So some honorable mentions for the villains. I was thinking Penner, Ace from Gabon, maybe you remember him, Lex, and Todd. Now, I didn't put any of these people in because for the villains especially, there was such a large number of males to put in this cast. And so it was very hard for me to cut people, especially like Penner and Lex. However, for Ace, I really cut him because he was voted out pre-merge. And though I do think that that's usually not enough for me to take someone off my cast, for this, since I had such a limit of male villains I could put in, I did not include him. And then Todd Herzog, I would have loved to see him on Survivor 20. However, with recent circumstances of his alcoholism, though he has been sober for I think many years now, I thought that I should just leave him out of this cast, especially with such the tight limit. So let's get started. So my first one is from Survivor Borneo, and this is a dream cast, so there's not going to be any realistic people on here. However, the person that I did put on, Richard Hatch, he was contacted to come out to Survivor Heroes vs. Villains, but if you have seen the video of the 20th reunion, it explains why he was not out there, and that is because he went to jail for, or I think he was under house arrest actually, for not paying taxes on his Survivor money. So obviously he could not leave the country to go film Survivor 20. But I did have him on my cast since it is a dream cast, and now it is 2022, so it's fair. My next one is from Survivor the Amazon. And honestly, I was actually very surprised that this person was not on this cast. However, I did have Rob Cesternino. And this season is actually when he started making RHJP, which is his podcast. And I'm very surprised he was not on the season because at Survivor All Stars, he was voted by America to be the most noticeable, you could say, villain of Survivor. And so I was very shocked that he was not on this cast, but I did include him for my dream cast. My next one is from Survivor Pearl Islands, and this one was very simple. I know he got blacklisted because of his quit in Micronesia, but I do have Johnny Fairplay, and really, if I looked a lot of it up, you could easily research this, but most of his quit was due to all of the meds he was on. He had a recent injury, and so they did not allow him to take painkillers on the island, but he was also on different meds on the island, so most of his quit could be dedicated to that. But I would love to see him play again, especially since he is such an iconic villain. Especially up until the time of Wrestle Hands, he was probably the most noticeable villain, even more than Rob. So I did have him on my cast, especially with the grandmother lie. You know, I had to have him. The next season on my list is Vanuatu, and actually I have three from this list. It is a season with very little heroes, very few heroes, but very many villains. So the first one I had is the runner-up, Twyla, and I feel like I would love to see her play again. Obviously, she was a major villain in the game, and so she made it onto my list. The next one I have is Chris Doherty. I mean, he might be one of the biggest BSers in the history of Survivor, especially lying at Tribal Council, which I know Jeff Probst is not a fan of, but it's definitely a villainous thing. And the third one is Eliza, and actually she was on the Amazing Race, and that was actually with someone else that you'll see on this cast. So if you know who that is, I just spoiled it for you, but keep watching, you'll find out. But I definitely think that Eliza is a villain, especially we see her return in Micronesia still as a villain, and so I did have her on my cast. So next from Survivor Panama, and I feel like the biggest villain in the season is Sari. I'm just joking. I put Sane. I put Shane Powers, and this is the guy that carved a wooden blackberry and talked to it. I mean, he's kind of like a coach figure, but just a little more off in the brain, if you know what I mean. But yes, I had to have him on here as a villain. I would love to see him play again. He almost made it onto Survivor Second Chance, but he just missed the boat. And if you watch an interview with Jeff Probst in ET Canada, he says that people love other people like Coach and like Shane and Shambo because they are funny and entertaining to watch. But people love people like Jeremy and Kelly Wentworth more because they're good at the game and they make the show entertaining and suspenseful. And so, though that is true, I would really love to see Shane on a cast like this, especially since I'm not having Coach. I feel like I should have someone like him, and so I did put Shane. So next from Survivor Micronesia, I have Natalie Bolton, and I'm honestly surprised she hasn't played yet. And she was actually on the cast for Survivor Heroes vs. Villains. She got to the island, she took the cast photos, however, they had to cut her last minute, and so she did not make it on, but I'd love to see her play again. Convincing Eric Reichenbach to give her the necklace, just a huge villain. The speech to Parvati at Final Tribal Council, definitely a villain. Next from Survivor Gabon, this is the person that went on Amazing Race with Eliza. I have Corinne, and I mean, you see Corinne, she wasn't that big of a figure in Gabon until the Final Tribal Council speech, when she tells Sugar that she needs to stop crying about her dead father. What was it exactly? It was the only thing that Corinne will give her is a handful of antidepressants, so she will stop crying about her dead father. So yes, definitely a villain, and she was also asked to be on Heroes vs. Villains, but could not do it because of work obligations, so she did make it onto my list. From Survivor Talking Cheens, I have Aaron, and this is actually kind of ironic since Coach is obviously not on my list, but Aaron and Coach, they actually made it onto my Rivals Dreamcast, so if you want to check that out, I explain that further, their rivalry further, and normally I would not like to see her play again, but in circumstances where she would be with someone like Shane Powers, like Coach, I do have her on a cast because she is a more sarcastic type that gets annoyed easily and it's entertaining to watch, so I did put her on. So next up, let's go to the heroes. So some honorable mentions for the heroes. I really only thought about two people. Ian Rosenberger, I mean, he basically quit in Survivor Palau, but he's been asked back for every Survivor season, and he was aligned with Tom the entire time, who was, at the time, maybe the biggest hero of the show. And so I definitely had to have him on my list. However, there was just so many heroes in the past 20 seasons, because if we look at old school versus new school, in the old school season, it's really, you're more liked and more popular if you're a hero. And so there were a lot of heroes. And so I had to cut Ian. And then also Eric Reichenbach, I figured he just wasn't a big enough figure as the other people on my list that you'll see shortly. So let's dive into it. Okay, so first hero I have is from Australian Outback. I actually have three, just like I did in Vanuatu. And just like how Vanuatu's villains outnumbered the heroes in that season, in Australian Outback, I feel like the heroes do outnumber the villains. Of course, you do have villains in Jeff Varner, in Kimmy, you could say, and obviously Jerry. But I do feel like even more than that, there are a lot of heroes. And so let's start. The first one I have is Amber. And I honestly don't even think she deserved to be on Survivor All-Stars. She wasn't great in Australian Outback, but because she got proposed to at the reunion, and because uh, that's something that I think Jeff Probst sees as very heroic, even though her boyfriend did blindside a whole bunch of people and she was in on it. I do think that she is considered more of a hero, especially if you are adding that on to Australia. The second one I have is Tina, the winner of the season. The only thing with Tina is I don't feel like you're ever going to get a different Tina. It's always going to be the same kind motherly figure to the tribe. However, that's not a bad thing. However, after her run in All Stars when she got voted out first, I do think that she should have gotten a second or a third shot sooner than when she came back for Blood versus Water. So I do have her on this list. The next one I have is Elizabeth Hasselbeck, and she has really lost her popularity in the Survivor community recently, but at the time she was extremely so popular. And even in a interview with ET Canada, Jeff Probst said that he would rather have Elizabeth back more than Richard Hatch, which is crazy. If you think about the scales, that's how popular she was at the time. This was filmed in 2001. I was born in 2006 and didn't even start watching Survivor until 2020. But I still understand how popular she is, and she is definitely a hero. She had a great run in the Australian Outback, and so I would like to see her play again. She did make it onto my Survivor second chance cast, if you would like to check that out. Next, from Survivor Africa, I have Ethan, because he was kind of the JT before there was a JT. If you think about it, he was the first guy to win because everybody liked him so much, and so I had to have him on this list. Next up from Marquesas, I have two. The first one is Kathy, and this is another one like Elizabeth where people forget how popular she was at the time. She was in Marquesas All-Stars, and I was actually surprised that she's not in Heroes versus Villains because of her popularity. So I did have her on my cast, as well as Sean Rector, and he was really the first person to bring up racial relations on Survivor, and that's why I have him as a hero. So next up from Cook Islands, again I have two, and the first one is Ozzy. Challenge Beast, huge, the thing with Amanda in Micronesia, very popular, and he's my favorite Survivor player of all time, so any chance that I have to put him on a Dreamcast, I'm going to. But the other one I have is Yule, and this is one of the best strategists of Survivor, but he's a great strategist without blindsiding people, and that's really why I think that he is such a hero in Cook Islands. The next one is from Gabon. And Gabon is a hard season to find heroes. Of course, you've got heroes in Bob and Susie, but those are really boring players. The hero I did have is Maddie. And Maddie was, he almost won the award for most popular. The sprint award. I don't know why I couldn't think of that. But yeah, I think that I would love to see him play again. I feel like that if he got a chance to play again, he would play a lot better, kind of like Kelly Wentworth-esque, I guess. But he was a fallen angel of the season, and a very funny and interesting character to watch. Last one is from Survivor Talkin' Cheens. I have Taj. And Taj is another person that I would love to see play again. And definitely a hero. At the family visit, when her husband said that he was coming back to camp, she pulled on Jeff's arm and was screaming. And Jeff says that the first time he's ever cried at a family reward was in Caramelon. But I mean, come on. We all saw a little tear there, right? It couldn't just be me. But anyways, from the Heroes Tribe, we have Ethan, Taj, Yule, Maddie, Tina, Amber, Sean, Elizabeth, Kathy, and Ozzy. From the Villains tribe, we have Twyla, Chris, Johnny Fairplay, Shane, Corinne, Aaron, Rich, Rob Cesternino, Natalie, and Eliza. Thanks for watching. See you later.